Evening all. No, I don't keep this shirt on for days at a time. I've actually recorded a few videos on the same day, so not necessarily in the evening either. So this is a response video. I've not really done one of these before, so it's a step a bit into the unknown. Now, there's a chap I follow on Twitter called the Academic Associate. You can find him at SlySneak. And he's not to be confused with the Academic Agent, who's somebody completely different on YouTube. Okay, they may seem a bit similar and both have a penchant for George Sanders, but I assure you they're two entirely separate people. Anyway, what he did I think yesterday, he put out a list on Twitter of the 10 most objectionable people in the public eye for him. And I looked at that list and I thought it was quite interesting, and I agree with a lot of it. So I'd like to do a response video. If you're watching, I'm your biggest fan. Not really. I just appreciate what you do. I like a lot of what you do, and I like your kind of chats that you have with other people who I find interesting. But anyway, without further ado, let me go through this list and share what I think of the people on it, give my opinion, and I mostly agree. Okay, number one, Sadiq Khan. Unsurprisingly, at number one, I see essentially a very weak man in Khan, and a hypocrite. I think these are two big stumbling blocks with him. Now, he could end up being, out of the 3 mayors of London we've had so far, he might end up being the worse than Ken Livingstone. At least with Livingstone, there was a kind of ethos, dare I say, madness to the man, but it was entirely consistent. You don't get that with Khan. So, he did that video a few months ago where he's complaining, he's hurt, his feelings are hurt because somebody says, you look like a rubbish stunt double for Jose Mourinho, and he equates that with an actual death. You Muslim terrorist, you should die. He's equating these two. I mean, the former one is a kind of crude joke at his expense. The latter one, he should be reporting to the police. The police should definitely. I mean, that is a death threat. What's he doing reading this stuff out in a YouTube video or whatever it was, with the soft strings and the melodramatic music in the background and his poor hurt feelings? No, you go to the police and say, look, somebody here is calling for my death. Okay, so go after them, because that is one hate speech law we can all agree on, actual threats of violence. So he's extremely weak. He's hypocritical on free speech. How can I stop a Trump balloon? How can I stop these people's right to protest, but at the same time stomp on the guy who calls him a crap Jose Mourinho stunt double, and putting 900 police officers looking for nasty tweets? He is a ludicrous, weak, pathetic figure who has let crime escalate in London and hardly does anything about it. Number 2 on the list, Owen Jones. Well, we can all hate Owen Jones. Hate's a strong word, I know, but he's just. Owen Jones has gone from a kind of, oh bless, kind of youthful idiot into something far more malevolent. He's the boy who cried fascist. He sees it everywhere. I mean, you look at him, even a year ago, he's doing a little interview, one-on-one interview with Jacob Rees-Mogg, and he's going, I disagree with Jacob Rees-Mogg. I disagree with people, but I want to connect. I want to understand their point of view. And he doesn't really, because not that long ago, he's interviewing Jonathan Pye and sort of, hauling Pye over the coals because he's not left-wing enough, and he's calling everybody a fascist. I think the defining moment for Owen Jones, what I think has set his personality in on a one-way roller coaster ride, as it were. It was the moment he stormed off set and he did that interview. I think it was Sky News with Julia Hartley-Brewer when they were talking about the Orlando shooting, and he had this little temper tantrum stamped off, and that's him. He is a temper tantrum, and the whole shtick is just absolutely loathsome. But he's trying to appeal to the left-wing Ute I'm one of you. Number 3, Theresa May. I'm not sure I put her on my top 10 loathsome figures list. I think of her as more of a crushing disappointment than something loathsome. I mean, she could be playing this malevolent game of she always wanted to scupper Brexit, and I mean that's one view, and I think you can make a reasonable case for that. I just think she's she's weak, and she hasn't really got a lot of convictions, but she wouldn't make it on my top 10 list. Number 4, David Lammy. Well, David Lammy is how Britain does race baiting, right? I mean, you have on one hand, the way the Americans do it. They really ramp up the rhetoric. David Lammy is this kind of sort of diluted version of that, but it's still race baiting. I think what for me makes Lammy particularly objectionable is he's one of these people who loves narratives to his history and to what's going on in the world. He loves narratives, and I've done a video on why you should never trust narratives when it comes to news. So he is openly selective with his facts. Now, you can always say that about politicians in general. I think what politicians do is that they like to cherry pick their facts to back up their convictions. What Lammy does is he's got his argument pre-worked out in advance. No matter where he goes, he'll be in some location sort of trying to highlight a problem, but even before he's arrived at the location, even before he's done any research on that location, he has made up his mind. He's got one stock presentation, which is to race bait and to catastrophize. What happens is he gets caught out doing it. So there's that famous clip of him saying, "There are no policemen here," and there's a policeman standing in the background. Because this is a man who has worked out his pitch, regardless of the facts on the ground. He's not somebody who turns up somewhere and says, "Oh, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. I better change my pitch." No, he's got the one pitch, right, and forget the facts. He's going to stick with that pitch, but he gets caught out. So yeah, I agree with that on the list. Okay, number 5, Justin Trudeau. What can we say? This is another weak character. You're starting to get a theme here that people who are quite far to the left, on the progressive left, are quite weak individuals. Who is Justin Trudeau's personality? He is amorphous. His diversity is our strength. But the only thing that's diverse is the way he tools his personality to suit different groups of people. He shows up in India. I'm in Indian costume. Well, that backfired. He's in a mosque, and the mosque insists that all his female staff have to go into another room, and he just says, "I'm a feminist prime minister, but I've sent all my female staff away because I'm trying to appeal to this group." And he's bland, he's nothing. But always with these progressive lefties who are very devoid of a personality, there's always a kind of passive-aggressive streak to them, and he's got that. And that's what Bill C-16 represents. It's the passive-aggressive. We must all care for each other, but if you don't... Anyway, Maxine Waters. This is where state of the Democrat Party is. To have a politician of her years and experience just sort of say, forget civility. If you see somebody who's on your opposition in a restaurant, get them out of the restaurant, give them a kicking. It's like Peter Fonda, who hasn't been relevant since the Limey, telling people go to their houses, drag them out, kick them. Maxine Waters, she's in her late 70s. And so she's seen the Watts riots, she's seen the Chicago riots of 1968, she's seen the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King, and she's here. Well, once upon a time, that to make a statement at the Mexico 1968 Olympic Games, the Black Power salute, that is a way of maintaining civility, but showing that you are determined and resolved, and this issue matters on a world stage. And to say, right now, these people are so hated, they're not even entitled to their lives, their personal lives, their family life, their downtime. They're not entitled to that. It's toxic, and this is where the Democrat Party in America is heading. It's absolutely scary. Number 7, Jeremy Corbyn. Again, somebody on the Marxist left who's bland, devoid of a personality. I mean, there's a character in literature. I forget his name. I should have done the research before I set the camera rolling. But he's the character from Dr. Zhivago, the young idealistic communist who becomes a commissar, and his personality is gone by that stage, and all he is just an ideological mouthpiece. He can only say things that are in the communist playbook. That's all he is. It's just a connected series, and this is Corbyn as well. He's just a connected series of left-wing statements from a book that are repeated by everybody. You know, our comrades, our friends, Hamas. I deplore violence on all sides. You know, you just hear this. It's a mantra of people who just are devoid of personalities. And this is Corbyn. What's he like? What's his personality like? You know, does he show any? You know, he's just mantras. But again, that passive-aggressive side. There's that side of Jeremy Corbyn that if you disagree with him and you step out of line with what he wants for Britain, he'll pound you. So, yeah. Number 8, Paul Mason, journalist. Yeah, professional liar is what I call him. In fact, I've tweeted to him saying, "You're a professional liar." He didn't retweet. He didn't respond to me, you know, because I'm not that high up in the totem pole, and I'm probably just another alt-writer to him. But that's the thing, you know, he's another person who cries fascist. He's one of these journalists I despise, because it's not about finding objective facts and going, okay, well, I've got this load of facts in front of me. I've got to somehow do a news story about them that is fair, that incorporates these facts, you know, and if it clashes with my ideology, I've got to take a step back. I've got to, you know, rework my piece. No, he is deliberately selective about facts. He's actually quite open about it on his Twitter feed, how much he manipulates facts to push a narrative. That's why I call him a professional liar. And you catch him out because it's all about winning with Paul Mason. It's all about going in for the kill with people he doesn't like, who are all fascists in his view as well. Another person who cries fascist. Number 9, Guy Verhofstadt. Oh, he's the man I love to hate, because he represents politically things that I stand against. So he's for he is Mr. Federal EU superstate himself. He's written a book which I have thumbed through. I've kind of read the foreword, read the conclusion chapter, and just sort of I've read a little bit. So, you know, there's no way I'm going to line his pockets by buying a copy of the book, but I've seen him interviewed, and I've read synopsis of the book, and I've read excerpts from the book. So he's Mr. EU superstate, and I'm not. I believe in it's not nationalism, it's not bigotry, but it's like a nice quiet pride in your country. Sometimes you can exert your feelings of pride for your country. There are certain national holidays that you don't do it 24/7, but you just say that your culture, your country, your history, your traditions, your philosophies, that reach a perfect size, and it could be different. It could be a small country like Denmark, or it could be somewhere in the middle like Britain, or bigger France, Germany, but we all have identities, and these identities are good things, but Verhofstadt doesn't think that. But what I particularly dislike about Verhofstadt is his intolerance. Now, he is a bigot, right? He is a bigot because he is intolerant of other people's points of view. And there's this, that you see fantastic interviews with Verhofstadt. One of the best was with Evan Davids, who's normally very pro-EU, but he grilled Verhofstadt on European federalism. And Verhofstadt does this thing, where if you start disagreeing with him in an interview, he kind of looks down his nose like that, and then he has that downward pointing mouth, the sneer. So he looks down your nose and he sneers. And then when you start putting, as Davis did that day and other journalists have done, I would love to see Verhofstadt and Andrew Neil go toe-to-toe. If that has happened, please point out to me in the comments below where that has happened. But when he's starting to be pressed on things and he hasn't got a good answer, the bottom lip starts to go on Verhofstadt. So he's like, and he just can't handle it. Can't handle anybody saying, well, why can't we keep our national identity? Why do we have to have this European superstate? And it's just great. You just think he would last 5 seconds in the British political. If he was a Westminster politician, He'd last no longer than 5 seconds in Prime Minister's Question Time before he was absolutely hammered, by his opponents. He wouldn't survive under sort of British journalism, as it was. I don't know about it at the moment, but yeah. So he's loathsome, and he's the intellectual driving force of the EU, not the pisshead Juncker. No, it's Verhofstadt who's the intellectual force of the European project. Okay, and number 10 on Academic Associates' despised list is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a new entry at number 10. Yeah, because she's taken over from David Hogg as the kind of identikit progressive Ute voice, and everybody likes it because she cares, because she's different, she's breaking the mold, she's the voice of the youth. Okay, but again, what she's saying is just kind of, old Marxist claptrap. I've had people say, her political opinions are just in line with many centre-left political parties in Europe. No, she's far more anti-law and order and anti police and anti-borders, and I mean, she's just done some stuff about calling Israel occupiers of an occupying power in Palestine. Right, this is something that the centre-left in Europe, certainly, the kind of moderate left in the United Kingdom, as epitomised by Liz Kendall. She's my poster girl for the centre-left. They would never put up with that, The Miliband's would never put up with that. But so she is, watch this space. I think she's going to get a lot worse, and I would love it. I would love it when she hits that first kind of intellectual or robust argument where somebody, she's face to face with somebody who's kind of well respected, but from the centre or the right, who is just going to challenge her face to face, and just I predict she will wilt in the face of that. So that is my opinions on Academic Associates' top 10 list of loathsome people in our public life. I'm going to go away and think of my top 10. Will it contain some of the ones here? Quite possibly. I might introduce a few others. I might introduce people who are, these are all very much political figures. I might start bringing in people from the arts world or from the academic sphere who are entering into the political debate and who I think are doing it for the worst. So, this is perhaps the longest video I've ever done outside of a short film. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll see you later.